State elections, not national election, you know.
16th, 6 p.m., FAMPO Policy Committee meeting. First thing we'll do is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could stand, please. If you're ready.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, wait, was that Matt?
Absentia.
Yeah. All right, Collie, if you could please call roll, please.
Meg Bomke.
Here.
Corey Hayes.
Here.
Jason Brown.
Here.
Jen Baruti. Monica.
Oh,
Making an entrance.
Monica Scary. Matt Kelly. Jacob Lane. I see you. Marcy Parker. Bob Schneider.
Here.
Crystal Lanucci.
Here.
Chris Yakowski. David Brown. Tom Cohen.
Here.
Cheryl English. Deborah Frazier. Kevin Marshall. Tim McLaughlin. David Ross. Michelle Shropshire. Joe Stainsby. Forum is here.
hey, thank you very much. For the record, Jacob Lane sent an email today at Ian. Ian forwarded it to me because, as you know, just a friendly reminder, we do have bylaws that indicate you can have 2 meetings virtual a year and you have to state your reason. So he stated a reason to me that I am comfortable with.
Do we need to take a vote to allow him to?
No.
No.
But thank you. Okay, the first thing is we'll approve the agenda, and I do have a request from Jeff Black in Caroline County. If somebody is willing to make a motion, and then we can talk about the,
Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
right, a motion and a second. Jeff was wondering if we could move item 9 or 9B all the way up.
I'll
And
accept that amendment.
No, I think it's,
Or
yeah,
do you
sorry.
want the whole thing?
No, sorry, Carol. Don't mind me.
Jeff,
It can be right after, whatever, it can be right after
The river, okay, all right, so we'll move 9 up and just we'll switch 8 and 9, that's it.
Okay, I'll accept that amendment.
Except.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
moving down to public hearings.
So,
Ian,
Chairperson, we have a public hearing now on the amendments to the SEEP, the Community Engagement and Equity Plan. You'll remember that we presented the document last policy committee meeting to amend two things in the SEEP. The one is to allow for a shorter period of public comment for tip amendments. And the other one is regarding the reading of letters that are emailed to us or posted to us in the public meetings. And the alternative that was proposed was that staff would read a summary and not read the whole letter. But that the letter would be also printed and attached to your agendas, and it would also be emailed out with your agendas, and then staff would just read a summary, not read the whole letter, to try to expedite that. And those two amendments were put out for public comment last meeting. So tonight you would have a public hearing to ask if any members of the public wish to comment on that before we proceed.
okay, do we have any members of the public here that would like to comment on the community engagement and equity plan revisions that we have made? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Are we taking action?
No,
Not till the next meeting.
because for changes to this, we have to have 45 days, and we're not anywhere near 45 days.
Okay.
So it will be next meeting.
All right, moving on to public involvement. Do we have any members of the public that would like to address the board tonight? Hey, Mr. Al Watkins.
Thank you. I'm Al Watkins from 12 England Run Lane in Fredericksburg, 22406. Recently, when Resolution 2409 was posted, I looked at the information and the tasks that were going to be outlined for the consultant. And I was taken that there's a couple of things that I thought were important are going to be in there. Namely, specifically, that inside the FAMPO Ripper report from June 23, we basically talked about a western connector that included the roadway between Courthouse Road and Centerport Parkway, and then another connecting road that was going to be between Centerport Parkway and Enon Road. That, in essence, would create a true alternate route north and south instead of I-95. So I was concerned that that wasn't in there, but I've been thankful and heartened that after my conversations with Chairperson Bonke and also Director Hollis, that we are going to have some of that imported into what the consultant is intending to do. So, you know, again, I was hopeful that that would be there and thankful that it is. I would say that without that, you're going to create potentially much more traffic that would be on both Plank Road and also on Route 17, unless there was a way for all those people trying to avoid 95 were able to go north in a much longer direction. So that is what I think would be. Now, as it turns out, Chairperson Bonke pointed out to me that in the Stafford Comprehensive Plan, there was notations for that to happen. And I did some research through that, and I found that that was the case, that it is mentioned. However, it's part of maybe 100 different projects that are in there, some of them which will ultimately probably never happen. So I want to make sure, hopefully, that Stafford County would put a little bit more of a priority on those two projects, should the bridge finally wind up being built. And then there were a few other things that I spoke to her about that I thought could be important, a few other considerations. Since VDOT plans to put a roundabout at the intersection in 2024, a roundabout at the intersection of Banksport Parkway and also where it hits Celebrate Virginia Parkway, I think that should be investigated also, because there will obviously be somebody who tries to use that access to potentially get to a bridge. So that should be looked at. Also, the potential impact of the 160.7 acres that might be rezoned between the Route 17 commuter lot and Sanford Drive should possibly be considered as well, especially since one of the options has one of the parkways going directly through where that property is. Finally, if you haven't seen the petition from Burritos for the large trail that he is intending to have created along the northern part of the river, you should really look at that. It's a stupendous thing, and it would be something that regionally we look at everything a little bit different. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Anyone else here that would like to speak to the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period.
Great.
Moving on to item 7. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve. I know you're gonna make your removal and then I'll amend it.
Yeah, yeah.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes, I'd like to remove B.
Okay, Ms. Vanucci, will you accept
Yes,
that?
can you second it?
Second,
Okay, we'll approve the consent agenda minus item B. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
This is the,
It's
oh, for the
Yeah,
minutes.
minute, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I'm a fan.
all right.
I
So
catch me.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? And 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. Item 7, a resolution 2410. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
this,
He wants to
we're
be.
pulling this, as we always have, so
Okay,
for consistency purposes.
and what would, and
So this is, has to do with the RTA. And we want to have a little bit more discussion on that, and I know we will later, but we don't want to do a blanket statement on it for right now.
So this item is not making any comment on the RTA. It's giving us as staff permission to do the research.
Right.
It,
The,
VDOT won't allow us to carry on working on this unless the UPWP says we're allowed to investigate.
right, so I know I'm going to get outvoted on this, but just because I'm carrying the torch for my board,
Sure.
I need to vote no.
gotcha.
But
Okay,
just for clarity, you're not voting to do anything other than to allow
I
us
understand.
as staff to find out things.
I understand. We're trying to be consistent here.
That's fine.
yeah.
So I know I'm being the fly in the ointment. I apologize.
Fine, not a problem. Okay,
You're right.
any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Lane, are you online?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
And how do you vote?
No, I'm fine. I'm with Lori. I just want to pull it for consistency purposes, but I'm ready to
That
move
mean
forward.
you're a no or a yes?
Means he's voting with Lori.
Okay, you're voting
No's.
no. Lori. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, we're
All
bumpy
right,
here.
gotcha. All right. So we have 2 no's. Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move right on down to 9A, which is resolution 2409, which is authorizing the NEPA study. So Ian, I'll let you take it from.
So, Chairperson, we did what I promised the policy committee I would always do, which is to approach more than one consultant so that we get a fair price for the work that we're contracting out. You remember allocated a potential budget of $685,000 in the UPWP, and our budget for the year. We got all 3 of our consultants were approached. One of them, Cambridge Systematics, declined to put in a bid. They said that they do not consider this their best, what's the phrase?
Use of resources?
It's not their area of
Their wheelhouse.
specific expertise. And so they were not going to put in a bid. We didn't get a bid effectively from VHB and from Michael Baker. We then asked first VDOT to give us some comments on the 2 proposals. We then constituted a panel to review the 2 proposals. The panel was unanimous in deciding that they wish to recommend Michael Baker for this particular project. The TAC endorsed that particular view. Obviously, there was an abstention again from staff from Spotsylvania. But other than that, the PAC recommended this particular project, this particular consultant, and their bid comes in at 625,000, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And that is substantially below the 685 which we'd allocated to the project. So bidding it out to multiple players does save us money every time we do it, and it has again. So we're getting it for a little bit less. And I think that everybody is comfortable that they are a reputable company that will do a good job. And so we recommend it to the policy committee for your approval. It's been through an extensive process. We didn't just quickly sign up somebody.
Okay, we know you wouldn't do that. Any questions for Ian? Okay,
Move to approve resolution 2409.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I would just like to say, I appreciate you moving this along very quickly. And appreciate you getting it on the agenda and doing all the work that you all needed to do behind the scenes. Any other comments?
Just wanted to echo the gratitude for staff helping move this forward. I know this is a cumbersome process, having to do all of this before we can actually really move forward. So thank you for dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Jacob, how do you vote?
Jacob, wake up from your nap.
Sorry, Meg. Yeah, no, I'm voting no on that as well.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted it for the record. Okay, any abstentions? Okay, we have 2 noes. It was unanimous. That moves forward with resolution 2409. You now have your approval to
Thank you.
engage their.
Thank you.
All right, next item, 9B, the Regional Transportation Authority update. Ian has a presentation, a draft memo, and then item C will go into our draft vision statement. So with that,
Thank you.
Ian?
Thank you, Chairperson. We started last time having some discussion about this, and I don't want to rehash everything that we went over last time. 2 things that the 2 real motivations for doing this are, number one, that if we're going to go after some larger projects, like say the Harrison Road interchange or the bridge that Caroline County would like to see widened over I-95 at Ladysmith, we have to come up with a large chunk of local match, and that's going to be millions of dollars in each case. If your bridge costs $200 million, that means we have to come up with 40 million in cash as the local match for the federal grant. If it
Y'all were that rich.
a federal grant. So coming up with that 40 million in a hurry is quite difficult. So the one reason to go after this is that we are increasingly needing to put in match or leveraged funding. And the same thing is starting to happen with Smart Scale. We've been told now that for FAMPO and GWRC projects, we need bigger projects. And the trouble with bigger projects is that if you put in $0, then Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia, and Richmond have got a lot of funds to put in as leveraged funding. So their cost benefit prices us out of the game, right? So that's the one reason. The other reason is 3 times now in the time I've been here, the representative of either the Virginia Senate or the Virginia House has put in their own bill without speaking to us, without any discussion with GWRC or FAMPO or me or Chip or any of you. I think there might have been one conversation, but basically without any of you in your other capacity as supervisors. And they've only failed by 1 vote last time. And so listening to the current, and I don't get involved in the politics, but I have to alert you to what's going on there, listening to the current campaigns of current candidates, they're planning it again. So they're going to try this again. They're going to put a bill of their own choosing into the House or the Senate and rush it through the state of Virginia. We think that's a bad idea. So as staff, we recommend that what you do is come up with your own proposal. We can then help all of you sell that proposal to those who are going to get elected on the 7th of November. I got it wrong last time. And ask them to submit a bill that we like, that we agree with, and not something they developed without us. So those are the two main reasons. The one is we need the funding to get matched for the projects which we don't have. And second, they seem to want to do it anyway in the Virginia legislature, and we feel that we've been excluded. So we're talking ourselves into that conversation so that we don't get excluded yet again. Because sooner or later they're going to get enough votes to approve this thing, and you may not like what they do. But that's what.
Yeah, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
I'm sorry. From a political perspective, if I'm in very rural Virginia, like some rural area, and you just said something about we're having to get the match. Counties, because we're probably one of the poor, in King George, one of the poor counties in this region. For a county like that's out like Wise County and stuff like that, where they need a bridge that's $50 million and they have no match, how does that how is that not going to price them out of it? Where Wise County or one of these counties, Bath County, where they can't come up with that. If I'm in the state legislature and you're requiring that as more of a match, and I'm in a rural area, like I'm not gonna be able to vote on that. I'm not gonna be able to vote yes on that because of the fact that my jurisdiction can't afford that.
So I'm going to give you one answer, and then I'm going to look at Marcy Parker and ask her to give you whatever she thinks the answer is. So the rural counties that are not part of an RTA can still apply in smart scale to have a big bridge built. There's nothing that stops that. And the state of Virginia funds projects like that at 100%, right? So you can get 100% of the money from smart scale. But there's a big but. The but is that they do a cost benefit analysis, and that gives you a score. And if you put no money down, your cost benefit score tends to go down relative to Hampton Roads, who comes in with $300 million as match. You don't score as well as they do on a project. So it's not that they can't in a rural county that's not part of an RTA get a big project, but it's harder. It's harder because of the cost benefit analysis, and you lose the game. But Marcy Parker, who's from VDOT, may have a different view. I'm just telling you what I have.
And you're correct for the smart scale. I mean, bridges are a little bit different because if a bridge is structurally deficient, it opens up other funding sources. It can't widen the bridge, but it can replace, it can at least fund 2 lanes that exist, and then you have to find the funding if you want to widen it. So bridges are a little bit of a different thing, but he's exactly right in that all the counties can put in for smart scale, and most of the rural counties, even in our district, don't have a match. They put nothing down. And so their projects are typically a lot smaller, but up here, unfortunately, they're a lot larger just because of the traffic volume and the population. But he's right in that the cost benefit is the problem. But little bitty project, cost benefits, a lot better. You put in, $70 million bridge, cost benefit's not going to be great unless you put in some match.
So, yeah, I guess my question is though, like say I'm a rural county, I don't know, name any rural county and I need a big, I've got 81 or one of the big highways in Virginia, and I need a bridge over. It's because we're wide, so they don't.
Donna's just reminded me the answer to that question. There's a thing called the I-81 corridor that has got an RTA, and all the way up and down there, they're all putting money in.
All right, so let's stick with 95 then.
Well, we're the I-95, I-64, there are certain percentages of it that go to other interstates in the state. So I-95 actually can get money from I-81 based on the code.
It's very complicated, and
It's done at the central office.
the more you dig in that hole, the more complicated it gets. But the I-85 already have done what this is proposing to do, and it already exists. And they put all that money into
They haven't had an RTA for a long time.
They've got it. It's not quite an RTA, but they have a thing like this that raises tax money, puts it in a pot, and funds that whole corridor.
Right.
Already exists. So they're not just winning smart scale, they've got this to fund them.
Right.
So, and we're the thing that Chip likes to point out is we're the hole in the donut.
Yeah, right.
Everybody around us has this except us. We're the place on the I-95 that doesn't have this funding. That was a long introduction. So, things that we need to discuss and things that you need to consider are all of these things, right? Because I can't finalize a draft bill and the state legislature can't finalize the draft bill without answering these questions. So these are the things you need to think about. What should we call it? What should the membership of the board look like? Should we have weighted voting? What kind of weighted voting? Which taxes and fees should be excluded or included? How do we distribute funds when it is raised? Prioritization of projects? And should we have an initial set of projects? One of the questions that you're all asking, and you're going to continue to ask until we finish this process, is this. What if we put in all the money and they get all the projects? Right? And that's what, so the whole point of balancing the legislation is to try and solve that problem. How do we look after everybody so that one lot is putting in all the money and the other lot's getting all the projects, or vice versa? You know, this is a group effort. So you've got to think of checks and balances, and that's what these bills have tried to do, and which we're trying to do here. So what should we call it? I don't really care.
Yeah,
Pick a name.
Excuse me, can you go to the other side so everyone can see? Thank you.
I beg your pardon. So in each of these slides, where you see the black, that's what I put in the draft, right? But any others are available. You can pick a name. I put that one in because it was the one that was used before. But call it whatever you like. You know, call it.
The Rappahannock River Crossing Transportation Authority.
Are you trying to, are you
Open the bear, that's what she's trying to do.
trying to upset?
I was gonna say that we're not gonna call it that.
Tax me more,
Are you
Transportation Authority.
It exists.
Okay, so give me a name. Representatives per jurisdiction. So things that you typically have in
Stafford is fine.
bills are representatives from the House and Senate, representatives per jurisdiction. A gubernatorial appointment, most of them don't have this.
No.
Senator from the CTB, some do, some don't. In some cases, they have a vote. In other cases, they have no vote. And then other non-voting members, this is typically DRPTV, DOT, etc. I've suggested maybe the head of FAMPO and GWRC, but you might all decide none of the above, right? All of these are options, right? And I tried to use, go back, next one. This is what I put in the draft. Again, change it, right? This is just a first kind of, I needed to put something on the page, so I put that. I put 2 from each jurisdiction, 1 from the House and 1 from the Senate, 0 here, 1 from the CTB, and 4 non-voting. These are like official types. That's what I put in the thing. Again, change it if you like. What I'm hoping to do is have more of you guys to balance out the votes from the Senate and the House.
Is it weighted though, like based on what?
Get
That's the
there.
next slide.
We'll get there. Next slide. So the first set of protections you have to put in here is the previous one. I increased it. The Senate bill last year had 1 from each jurisdiction, 1 from the House, 1 from the Senate, 1 from the CTB. And when you work that out, theoretically, if one jurisdiction voted with the non-jurisdictional people, they could block anything because it would be 4 votes to 4. So I thought that was a bad idea. So I put 2 from each jurisdiction and only 1 from the House and Senate. That gives you the first kind of local protection. Second local protection is this. This was actually in that draft bill, and I think it's a good idea. But you know, if you don't like it, don't have it. The idea here is that your representatives on that board have to vote. The representatives that vote yes have to represent at least 4 out of 5 members of the general population. That's 80%. So the representatives of the jurisdictions that vote yes to a funded project have to represent 80% of the population of the region, right? Effectively, it means that you have to get 4 out of 5 jurisdictions to support the funding of the projects. Not only.
Jason?
All right,
You
so
have 2 jurisdictions
question though.
voting all the money to themselves, because you have to represent 4/5 of the population.
Right, but what if you end up with a situation where representatives of the jurisdictions split their votes. At that point, do they constitute representing 4/5 of the population?
But you would have to, if it's, let's say you have two per jurisdiction.
Yes.
Let's say one from Spot C votes yes and one from Spot C votes no.
Sure.
You would have to apportion the population half, 50-50 to each.
Say that in the draft bill, because I was thinking about that and I didn't see that specifically.
It doesn't
Okay.
actually say that.
Okay.
The next one,
We would just need to include that if we're going to.
and how would you like that to be?
Well, just like you explained that, I mean, I think it makes sense here. In the case where representatives of a single jurisdiction, have offset or split votes.
What is that?
Then 1/2 of the population of the locality will be considered for this. Then my next question with this is then, I'm assuming that this means that the Virginia Senate and Virginia House of Delegates vote does not count toward this.
Yes, it doesn't,
Okay.
because they don't have a population.
Right.
The next one fits with this, right? The next one is a single jurisdiction may only veto projects in their own jurisdiction, which means that if 4 out of 5 of the jurisdictions vote yes and 1 votes no, they can't veto the project unless the project's in their jurisdiction. So let's pick one. Caroline. Caroline can veto projects in Caroline, right? But Caroline can't veto projects in Stafford and Spotsylvania and the city and whatever else. Your veto only applies to projects in your own constituency. So if 4/5 of the population's representatives vote yes, and one jurisdiction's representatives vote no, and they are outvoted in terms of the population, they can't veto your projects unless the project is in their jurisdiction. So you can't veto somebody else's projects if you're the only vote in the room that's against it. It prevents one jurisdiction saying, we're just going to be the spoilers and we're not going to let you do anything. You can't do that. One jurisdiction cannot block it. Right?
Well, actually,
Go ahead, Jason.
sorry. So given the 5 jurisdictions in this region, does one jurisdiction hold more than 20% of the population by themselves?
Yes.
So that means actually that one jurisdiction does have veto power.
No, because this principle still applies.
No, because if 4/5 of the population cannot be covered by those 2 members voting no.
Yes, go read the bill. It says, except that one can't do it. So even if they hold more than 1/5 of the population, they still can't veto your project.
Okay, when I read veto, I read it a little differently. So
4/5 must vote yes, except if the one voting no has more than 1/5 of the population, they can't stop the project unless it's in their jurisdiction. So
right.
in the end, it might be slightly less than 4/5 that support the project because the one veto jurisdiction might have more than 1/5.
No.
But still, one jurisdiction can't block projects when 4/5.
And I think from a common sense standpoint, if a project got up that far, you would think that that local jurisdiction would have helped bring that project along.
You mean like a bridge?
Why in the end? What?
You mean like a
Bridge crossing?
bridge crossing? Well, right now the 2 localities are.
Sorry, Spotsy.
What typically would happen?
No, I am even here.
What typically would happen in practice is that other jurisdiction probably has another project that they want. So inevitably, it's going to be funding projects in all the jurisdictions. Is that other one? I'll have a project. Now, the question was raised as to whether we should have additional weighted votes. In Richmond, they have that. In Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, I believe they don't. And that's a question for you all to decide on. I've not included additional weighting because you're already weighting here with 4/5 and with this. Additional weighting means that you then allocate more votes to some jurisdictions than others. And my fear is, and I'm just going to be honest with you, so feel free to throw this out where it came from. If we open that can of worms, I worry we will never get a decision. We'll never get consensus. Because how many votes should who get? And then you start having this situation where I'm going to poke you in the eye by allowing you to get, I'm only going to give you 3 votes and we're going to get 7. Or should you get 4 or 6, right?
Yeah.
When you open that can of worms, then we need another year to fight and argue and scream and all that. I just think this is a dangerous road to go down. You can do it, but then you must be prepared for the long haul of negotiating to try and, remember how difficult it was for FAMPO to agree 3 years ago on things?
That's because our student have rules.
Yeah, but you open this can of worms,
But he could come back.
who gets how many votes, right? If it starts to get real nasty. You're already protected by the 4/5 of the population and you're protected by one single jurisdiction, can't stop you.
I have a question just about the state delegate senate.
Yes.
Is it just one person from each?
Yes.
That's it. So like we have to figure out who's state delegate
No.
and who's,
They appoint somebody.
who's they?
The speaker.
So the speaker and the chairperson, but they have to choose somebody who lives in the region.
Now, I will warn you of one issue that has emerged in Northern Virginia in particular. And it's nonpartisan, it's just the reality. When the R's hold the speaker's position and there's an availability in Northern Virginia, they don't want to appoint anybody. So we've had seats taken on our board for multiple years because the Republican House would not appoint anyone from the Democratic side of the House to any position whatsoever. So you need to have a provision that requires it. If
They don't have a provision in NVTC in their bylaws that,
Apparently it doesn't require it.
So we, for example, went 2 years without a member from the, okay. So either remove that provision or find a way that force it within X number of days.
Yeah.
If it's enacted, but that's just something to be aware of. So one of the things that hits us is it affects quorum. So an example would be if you just say, if none is appointed, it does not affect your quorum. I mean, you can't force the General Assembly into certain things. You just can't.
That's very wise. So maybe we have to say that if they're not appointed, that doesn't form part of the quorum requirement.
Is that allowed through Robert's rules?
Well, you put it in the thing that if the thing remains vacant, you say, isn't the phrase, we don't consider vacancies?
Yes.
In constituting a quorum, so you do that.
All right.
Vacancies, you don't vacancies when constituting a quorum, and then you do away with that, so that if no one's appointed, you can still carry on business.
Okay. I'm actually, yeah, very much in favor of
Yeah, it just becomes a partisan issue or elbows out.
It just gets
That's not the
nasty
goal.
on
You
that
don't want
one.
that to affect your local operations based on what bickering is happening in Richmond.
Right.
It makes sense. You can't predict what the House and the Senate are going to do.
Or who wins your election.
Okay, so yes,
yes.
I'm sorry, what is the benefit of having those two sit on, why would we need them?
the answer to that is, in all honesty, I don't know. However, the reason I left it in is because I looked at all 3 of the existing RTAs and they all have them. And in view of the fact that they have to vote to create this thing, I'm guessing they want one of themselves on the board to check that nothing goes wrong. I don't know.
It's up to them to create.
They have to approve this, not us. So I'm assuming they want one of themselves on the thing.
And it will have state money involved, so they
And
just.
just a lot of, regional,
I would suggest don't put it in to begin with, make them add it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And just openly don't be opposed to it,
Right.
knowing that that might be a byproduct, but maybe there's a certain point at which, yeah, it's not worth it. Maybe it's always been done that way because it's always been done that way.
But if I may, quick possible counter to that is if we just ignore it, they could take that and then fill that void with, say, 3 from each or 2 from each and very much water down the local votes. So I worry about that gambit.
It may occur even if you put it in.
It could, but I feel like it's more likely if we start at 0. I feel like it could almost provoke a backlash rather than, oh, okay, and they have 1 each. All right, I see where they're coming from as the trying to compromise.
I'm listening to this conversation. It's just keep that in mind as well.
I hope they are.
Three guests, so unnamed.
Okay, so there you go. They're probably listening to us.
Hello, unnamed guests.
Hello, guests. So the optional taxes that we could use, right? And I need to explain all of this. This is the most complicated part, okay? These are one tax, not multiple taxes, because you're either going to pay the gas tax or the diesel tax or the electric vehicle however you see. You're never going to pay all these three simultaneously, right? These are not three taxes. It's only one tax. But in order to not let the trucks and the electric vehicles out, you have to add that. It is only a gas tax. Secondly, there's a retail tax, and I put those as option A and option B, but this as a package is option B. Don't try and split these up, or you can get rid of the highway use fee if you want to, but it makes sense to me that they should not pay tax because they're going to use the road. These three are the ones in last year's bill that were put in there. This is the one, this recordation tax that you know about because it was taken from you, right? You had this tax.
Thanks a lot, Josh Cole, if you're
The
listening.
tax still exists, but it was taken, we don't get involved in politics to stop, so I'm staying out of all of that. But the recordation tax exists, right? And it's been given to other places that have an RTA. So what this one does is to try and bring back that money and add some. It's more than what you lost, significantly more than what you lost, but it brings back the recordation tax. It's not a new tax.
Okay, so Ian, I have some information and I'm not, okay, so that money we know went to Hampton Roads to the bridge tunnel because they were underfunded. I'm not convinced based on some research that our staff has done that we're gonna get that money back, that money has been dedicated to them. They have that funding stream. We're gonna have to,
So the
I'm not hitting the
the
eyeball
gentleman
button
that
on.
drafted this bill, I
Yes.
believe, took that into account when he drafted this bill, because if you read it carefully, he's increased the total amount of the recordation tax and is given us from that portion of the increase.
Okay, I missed.
So,
Okay,
so in other words, I don't think he's trying to claim back the money that already is allocated to Hampton Roads, but he's increased the total amount of the tax and given us from the increase a portion. It's not even the whole increase. It's
okay,
a good chunk of it, but it's not the whole increase. That's how I understand it, but
okay.
I'm not a lawyer, so just
That
make-
is
obvious.
key. That is.
I'm not a lawyer.
Equation.
But the point is, that is money which really shouldn't have all gone somewhere else because it's raised here and we have needs here. Those two are a transient occupancy tax and a grantor's tax that bring in smaller amounts of money. So when you look at that lot, there are two things that, well, there's one thing that I would ask you, and that is this. People build new developments in our region that bring additional vehicles to our region, and new families move into those developments and bring their cars, which creates congestion in our region. An example is the new development in, is it Orange County? With the 2,500 homes, how many,
Right.
anybody?
Oh, right on the Spotsy border.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks.
Now that,
Right?
Sure, I understand what,
No, no.
catch the scab.
there are many, but I'm using this as an example. Not one of those homes is being built in our region, right? They're across the border. 2,000, 2,500 homes, I don't know what the exact number is. Every one of those families is going to have 2 cars or 3 cars or 1 car, I don't know. They're going to drive down Route 3 and they're going to go and shop at Spotsylvania Town Center or Central Park. They're going to create a bunch more congestion on Route 3. And then everyone's going to knock on my little office door and go, hey, we have to upgrade Route 3. And I'm going to go, hey, where's the money? Right? So we cannot get that money from that development or that developer or the new owners of those homes or the drivers of those cars. Right now, there's no mechanism. So whether we use one of these property-related taxes or a retail tax or a gas tax, they do give us a little bit of an opportunity to get at least a little something back from those folks. second scenario, and that was going to be in my presentation on the administrator's report, which you're now only going to see after this, but the trucks that drive through our region, we spent some time finding out where they come from. And they're coming from all over, from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, from New York, from Maryland. They're driving on our roads, they're congesting our roads, and we can't get any money back from them because the gas that they buy to run those trucks, or the diesel, we don't get any of that tax to fix our roads. So there are two cases of there's a problem. The problem is the congestion is increasing and we don't have a way to value capture. We don't have a way to say, hey, just give us an extra 2 cents per gallon. We don't have a way to do that. These, whichever combination of these you think is a good idea, give us little ways to start claiming back a little bit of that money to help us widen our road. So when you come to me and say, hey, I have to widen Route 3, I've got to fund it, because, you know, VDOT, who are in the room, are going to say, well, we'll build it for you, but we need the money. Get it? It's a little bit of a story, but I'm trying to illustrate what the point is.
I just have one point of feedback just from the Stafford side. So we just adopted our legislative priorities, and one of the things that we're going to be petitioning our delegation for is to allow us to go to referendum next year for a 1% increase in retail sales tax, for that money to be earmarked to building new schools, and it sunsets after 20 or 25 years to kind of offset the cost for residential tax increases. So I really would have to understand what you're asking for on the retail tax rate, because I personally, like, I think our board is already kind of committed to that increase. If the voters have to vote on it, that would go to schools, and I can't imagine our sales tax then going up 2% or 3%. That would kind of make us uncompetitive to other jurisdictions. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that in the room, because I don't think Stafford, just where we are from a growth perspective and having to build schools, would be okay with saying that we also want our retail sales tax to go up.
And if I may, I was actually just right off the bat going to suggest option B in the first place for a lot of the reasons you mentioned about the competitiveness, but I'll
hang on.
Yeah, you can finish, but I wouldn't be able to support it knowing that we've already committed to that money going to schools, and I can't, that would just make it uncompetitive for Stafford in the region.
Okay, we can talk more about that. I think Ian has like about 8 more slides.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So, first thing we did was,
The
first principle we tried to use as a staff to advise you is to say, what is the tax rate around us? And try to peg a potential tax less than the total rate at our neighbors. So what Richmond has got in their RTA, what Northern Virginia has got in theirs. And we want to peg it below that because of these reasons. We don't want to have a situation where it's more expensive to buy a tub of margarine here than it is in Northern Virginia or Richmond or Hampton Roads, right? That's part of the equation. So we try to always go, well, what's going on next to us? So this is approximately Richmond's current fuel tax. But it's very complicated, and that's why the explanation is necessary. Here we have the VRE gas tax, which they don't have in Richmond. So what we've had to do is first work out what the VRE tax is. And they made it complicated for us because they switched to a percentage, and they didn't switch to a percentage of the retail sales, they switched to a percentage of the wholesale rate. But our potential gas tax would be on the retail rate. So the complication here is we had to first try and reduce the percentage tax on the wholesale rate to a number of cents, to a dollar rate, so that we could compare apples with apples. So what's left is this green. And if we exceed the green, we go higher than that, we would then exceed what's happening in Richmond. Do you follow that logic? I'm told sometimes I repeat myself, so I don't want to repeat it if you all got it first time. So you get that? We're trying to stay below Richmond. So if this is already spoken for in the VRE tax, that squeezes our potential gas tax to something around this amount. And there's detail there. Next one. So the highway use fee is the same sort of thing. The state has a highway use fee. So we've tried to work out something similar to what the gas tax would be per annum, and then make that the highway use fee for the electric vehicles. Quite difficult to do because there's a lot of moving parts. So again, it's an estimate. And we put it at about $7.29 per year. It's a big amount. That has an effect on the numbers. Next slide. So I showed you this a month ago, but now we've changed it, right? We had to change it because we had to figure in the VRE tax to make sure that we're not outpricing ourselves. What that does is it reduces the potential gas and diesel tax compared to what I showed you last time. The income will be lower than what I showed you last time because we've now taken out the VRE money so that you don't overtax local folks. So we're going to get less money in from the gas tax than what I showed you last month for that reason. Everybody still on the page with me? So the retail tax, we looked at 0.5. The other RTAs have 0.7. So we came in at 0.5, that's a 0.5% for our region to come below the 0.7 of their region, right? And you can see the amount of money that it brings in. Again, these are all approximate figures. Reality is always slightly different, but that's what it does. So you can see that the retail tax versus the gas tax, there's quite a discrepancy in the amount that it would bring in.
But what we're missing, in my opinion, is the row that tells us what the percentages are. So what's the retail tax in Richmond? And then-
For the RTA in Richmond, it's 0.7%, I believe.
What's their total rate? Like, because when we're looking at, so Stafford is at what, it's like 5.4, is it 5.4? Plus it'd be 1% for the money that's gonna go to the schools at 6.4. Then you add that, then we're looking at 6% when we're higher than Reston.
Yeah.
So we could not do that.
So we can work to get you the total tax numbers.
Yeah.
So it's all complicated because
Yeah.
everything has got a different calculation to work that number out. So we're working hard on it and we're getting these numbers, but they are all approximate and they're quite complicated, so it takes time. So will you just make a note that we...
Crystal, you need to go to a commercial real estate tax increase.
These that are in gray,
Do that.
these three that are in gray are what was proposed in last year's bill. So there's the grantors tax. There's the reclamation tax. Here is the grantors tax. And here's the transit occupancy tax. And you can see that this is not a lot of money. You're not going to build a mile of sidewalk with this money. It's not worth doing. This is good if it gets approved, but they can revoke this one. And the trouble with that is if you get this and you start relying on the money and then they revoke that one, you're left with these. And you can see that the gas tax brings you limited money. The transient occupancy tax brings you next to nothing. And the grantors tax gives you about 3 million. Now, we currently have 6 million that we get approximately in CMAC and STGB money every year. Then we have this massive fight. We fight about how to allocate the 6 million. And how many miles of sidewalk does 6 million give us?
Oh, not much.
0.01.
Do we know?
I think it's like 2 miles.
Yeah.
$2 million.
So the total amount of CMAC and STGB money that's given to FAMPO to allocate to your jurisdictions is going to build you 1.5 miles of sidewalk if you're lucky. That's all it does. But we argue about that. It takes months to get the methodology of scoring agreed. And then people are still unhappy because he got a little more and whatever. All we get is 6 million a year. That's it. So you want to build a road? The 6 million is not going to cover even a piece of the sidewalk. right? So you need these bigger numbers, but of course, taxes are unpopular. We don't want to overburden local folks. Out of this, we have to try and cobble together something that is palatable, something that we can live with, but also something that's going to bring in a meaningful amount of money that you can take back to your jurisdictions and use for projects, or they can be put on regional projects. And that's just the reality of the numbers. We will, by next meeting, bring you numbers on total tax rather than just the total RTA tax. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that would be, yeah, that would be helpful because we would tax ourselves out of,
Yeah, specific jurisdictions that you want to also.
I would say like Prince William, Fairfax, Richmond, Henrico. Yeah, maybe, I mean, it would be helpful for us to know even Spotsy, what, like, if you guys have any
5.3.
additions. Yeah, so I think we're probably pretty similar.
I'll do our best to give
We're
you.
already gonna be hot, and then we're worried that, you know, the small businesses won't go there, and then people are gonna exclude
We
shopping.
have the same concern as you, which
Yeah.
is why in that previous one, we
Yeah.
just found out what's going on in Richmond so that we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to do it for
But you probably didn't know about what we're working on from the school
I
side,
didn't.
so that is a little bit of a
I
problem.
will do that. Then there's the question of when some money comes in, whatever the money is, how much do we give back to the localities directly without doing anything with it? Comes in, we give it back. Versus the percentage we put on regional projects. And the jurisdictions have different makeups on this issue. Next slide. No, this one. So Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia keep 70%, as far as what I can establish. They keep 70% for regional projects, and they give 30% back to the jurisdictions that the money comes from, right? So that is up to the jurisdiction to spend. As long as you spend it on a transportation-related project, you can do whatever you want with it. The 70% you then retain in the authority to spend on regional projects, whatever those regional projects are. Richmond is the exception. Richmond gives 50% back to the local jurisdictions, and then they divide up 35% on roads and sidewalks, and 15% goes to transit. Bob, who's in transit, may have a view on this, but somebody at the TAC said to us, that's not a good thing to do. It's a good thing to give money to transit, right? Because if you don't, the transit slowly falls apart. However, if you make it a specific percentage, locks you in. And so you then just automatically hand over the same percent every year to transit. 1 year, they might need less. Another year, they might actually need more than 15% of the money. It depends on what's going on the ground. And personally, I feel that we should allocate some money to transit, but we shouldn't lock in the percentage because you can't easily change that. If it's in the law, you have to do it and you're stuck with it. And if it turns out to be the wrong number, to undo it, you've got to go get all these senators and everybody to vote again. So I'm not so sure that the Richmond model is a good model to follow when it comes to that specific issue. It's better to just say, we'll give a percentage back to the localities and we'll put a percentage on the regional projects. And then out of the regional projects, you allocate some money to transit and you determine that year to year with a methodology rather than putting it in the bill. Because your methodology you can change. You can vote to change it. Very hard to change the law once it's written. So that's how they do it. Next slide. So I just took a stab at it. Don't scream. You're allowed to change it however you want it. I put 20% goes back to the localities. So the two big ones have 30, Richmond has 50. I put it in the middle at 40, but by all means, do whatever you want. And then 60% I would stay in the authority for regional projects, but feel free to change that. There's no magic number out there. If you want to allocate a specific amount to transit, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but you need to have some sort of an idea of how much you want to give back to the localities versus how much you want to keep in the authority for regional projects.
So just a couple of comments. It might help you get more votes if you do, especially from urbanized areas. Second, transit always gets overrun by roads because you're so freaking expensive to build roads. You will not fund transit out of this. So if you actually want to fund those types of things, figure out what you want. Right now, Fred's working on a comprehensive plan. Their strategic plan is required under DRPT rules and regulations. You can utilize that to pick a percentage, but ultimately, if you don't allocate the funds, it's going to hit your local budgets. And when you're choosing between police and fire or teachers or other programs, it's going to come from somewhere. But that's just a perspective. A couple of different examples is, for example, when we passed the 1% sales tax, it was 35% or 31% for transit or something like that. And we had a part of the community that screamed it wasn't enough. So having some may be beneficial for those who may be more interested, just a perspective to have.
So Bob's suggesting that you do have a set aside for transit in the bill, right?
But with some rationality behind it. We, for example, we costed out our plan over multiple years. It's just a perspective to hold. I'm not advocating for it one way or the other. That would be responsibility of Fredericksburg, et cetera, since that ultimately they are the placeholder for and the volume of services you wish to fund. But from an observation and a mechanism standpoint, if you don't have it, you won't fund it. So.
Yeah, good point. So you have to put in a prioritization methodology that has some kind of objectivity. Otherwise, what you're going to end up with is everybody screaming for the money for their project. So the way you soften that is that you put a proper methodology in place that says, give us the basics of your project, we'll give it a score, or not me, but whoever does it will give it a score based on objective quantifiable analysis, but it doesn't say how to do that. The board can make up their own metrics and consider benefits relative to cost. It's still a wide open gap there. How you decide what is a benefit or a cost, it's a general principle rather than a detailed instruction, right? You work out how to do that yourself. And then project must be included in a state, regional, or local long-range plan. So it can either be your county comprehensive plan, the FAMPO LRTP, the
CLRP,
the rural long-range plan for GWRC, and that was one of the faults with the last bill. It spoke about a planning district 16 long-range plan, and there is no such thing. Right? So I've fixed that in the bill by putting in the FAMPO long-range transportation plan or the GWRC long-range rural transportation plan or a locality plan or the state's long-range plan. So it has to be a long-range plan of some kind.
Okay, Jason?
thank you. Does the methodology have to be in the text of the bill?
Well, it just says you have to have a methodology.
Okay, we can say that there will be a methodology agreed upon.
After.
Doesn't say how to do it. It just says have a methodology.
Right, no, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to agree on that before we submit the draft.
Otherwise, we should have started a while.
Well, that was my concern. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be the poison pill. And
It'll take you 6 to 9 months to develop that.
yes,
So you develop that after the legislation is approved.
yes,
If the legislation doesn't get approved, we don't have any money anyway.
right,
So once the legislation is approved,
yes,
you then need to start an institution, right, with all these things. So that no point doing that now. It just says you will have a methodology.
great.
How you do that is up to you. So this is my last suggestion. This isn't required. But again, I'm trying to think of this bun fight, right, that would happen without some controls. So I'm working against the bun fight here. First one is all those principles. Your representatives must have the vote of 4/5 of the representatives of 4/5 of the population. No one jurisdiction can torpedo the whole thing. There's a whole lot of checks and balances in there. And this is the final one I'm suggesting, which is not, in Richmond's version. This is not in the bill. I'm suggesting that you do a memorandum of understanding between the 5 jurisdictions, where you agree to fund at least the first few projects, so that no jurisdiction feels like we're not going to get any projects. So upfront, and this is the part that you might need to negotiate, but you don't need to do it, hold up the bill to do it. You can do that memorandum through a couple of months of discussion. Gives the jurisdiction some level of comfort that their needs are considered. The lists of projects will not be put in legislation itself, but in the form of a memorandum of agreement or a resolution between the 5 localities. So you discuss, you workshop, you decide on, these are the big projects, right? And you use regionally significant projects, but I put our own definition. You don't want to rely on the federal government's definition of what's regionally significant. What's regionally significant for you might not be regionally significant for you. So we can have our own local definition of that. And you should show some level of need for these initial projects. It's not just, I like it. Well, that's not good enough. We need it because of congestion, or we need it because it's a safety issue, or whatever. Next slide. So I'm also proposing that the initial allocations could be the local match for these bigger projects. Because I can't think that we would say, we're going to give you $250 million for your project up front, right? It's a big sum of money. It's going to take us years to get that money. So what I'm suggesting is that you pick 5 initial projects, and you allocate a sum of money, which is the match to go after a federal grant or a smart scale application. It can still be a large amount, but not 100% funding. You can use this to pursue those grants. You may then have to fully fund the projects that don't get any funding from federal grants or smart scale, but not all. So let me give you an example. You have 5 projects. We give each of them some millions. All 5 apply for a federal grant and smart scale. And you manage to get funding for 3 of the 5 from either a federal grant or smart scale. You can then continue to fund the other 2 with local funds out of this thing. So then you get all 5 funded, but it's not all 5 funded out of the local money. Some of it is funded with federal grants, some of it funded as state smart scale grants. That's kind of how you play the game. It's a game. This funding thing is a game, and you've got to make sure that you put all the bits in place so that you get the best result. I'm suggesting that that's how you build flexibility into it. So you force everybody to apply for a state grant or a federal grant, but the ones that fail, you can supplement those with additional funds. And I don't scream, but I just put in an example. I try to stamp as loudly as I could, just an example, so don't kill me. You might want to say the I-95 lanes from exit 126 to exit 130, you might give $30 million to as a match. Or if you want to build the Harrison interchange at Spotsy, Stafford might want 30 million for the river crossing or for the new Western Nest work. I don't know. City of Fredericksburg might want money for Gateway Boulevard or the river crossing bridge or some other project. I just took a wild stab, so please don't take this too seriously. Caroline County, I know you want the bridge in Lady Smith over the I-95. Maybe they get some millions. King George might want Route 206 upgraded in that intersection because that's according to the travel demand model where they're going to get the worst congestion in the next 40 years. But hey, maybe you hate every one of the projects and you've got projects that you like or prefer and you put them in there. My suggestion is you just get a MOU between the jurisdictions to say the first few projects we will fund will be these. So it's not this black box that you're agreeing to. It's not this like, oh, we're going to agree to this RTA and we have no idea what's going to happen after that. You first of all have lots of checks in place and balances, and then you finally agree a first few projects so that for the first few years you have some idea of what that result is going to look like.
So the only challenge I see with that, with the MOU, is understanding what the cap is. So like, are we going to give King George and Caroline the same amount that Stafford would get in this MOU? And then based on the funding mechanism, what if we decide with our state delegates who are going to be working to pass the bill that we want the options that maybe aren't going to give us $30 million, like we choose the ones that are pulling in 5 million just to try it out, then it looks a lot different than if you're doing the sales tax.
We can tailor this MOU to whatever is decided in the rest of it, right?
Mhm.
So my suggestion is you do this towards the end, once you know which of the taxes you think you can live with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then we come to have an idea of how much money in the first 5 years will be available.
Yeah.
Once you have that number, which hopefully John can calculate for us, I'll then tell you, with that combination of fees and taxes, roughly looks like about X amount of money in 5 years, what you want to do as the next step. You don't have to have this MOU. This is me, so you can rule me out of order and throw this away. You don't have to have this. I'm just suggesting that to give everybody a little bit of level of comfort that it's not this black box that you're pouring money into and you're never going to know what the outcome's going to be. You know up front what the first few projects are to give you that level of, we're going to get something out of this. It's not this big hole that, I know nobody likes a black box.
Are you also going to give us the funding, like, so whichever tax, like all the different options with taxes, what the projections are for each locality that would be coming? So like, what are Spotsy's sales tax? What is Stafford's projected sales tax? What is the recordation from every
The
local?
dollar amount that would come in.
Because you've got it in totality, but then base it per region. So then when we're deciding, when we have to pick how much goes back to the locality, maybe some of us decide, well, Stafford and Spotsy are putting in 80% total. And I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like they're putting in 80% of the total. So maybe we think 60% should go back to the like locality, but then maybe it comes in that it's really only 50% or something, you know? So I think those numbers would be helpful in understanding.
It is very hard to do that.
Because the other part of that is you're not going to know who's spending it. Like take money that's spent at Central Park. That's City of Fredericksburg taxes.
Yeah.
But it's people.
Everyone
Spotsy
in
and
the region
Stafford who spending
comes
money.
to Central Park.
But I'm just curious, like what those numbers look like.
I right now don't know how to do that, but
Would be the local governments, because our budget person could tell us what our projected sales tax revenue is for the next 5 years. So like that.
Oh, that number,
Yeah,
okay.
like sales tax, recordation, because you can.
So we could
like,
ask.
Station's obviously gonna go down because the market is all
Right.
resale, so like we know that's going down. But just it doesn't have to be like we're, oh, you said we were getting $31 million, just an estimate of it, because obviously if the economy goes down, sales tax.
So I'm happy to call each of your jurisdiction officers, administrators, and ask for what the percentage is that you are taxing and what the dollar value is that is coming in, because we can work out a percentage dollar relationship, but it's quite difficult to do. Do you have any comment?
Yeah, I mean, we can always provide more information. At least from the numbers that we were showing, working with Mary Washington's faculty on this, we could at least say we know exactly how much kind of potential taxes we were per citizen, but we understand that how it's spent within the region is a little bit different because we know kind of the general amount of how much like retail sales happen per resident of Stafford is different from Spotsy, which is different from Fredericksburg. Been working with some of that in some of the other projects. It gets really.
Oh yeah, I think what she's just asking for is to have each locality give you their sales tax projection.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
Sales, well, and the other,
But-
yeah, which.
Current.
Yeah.
So the current.
The current,
So
what
we
we
can-
did in revenue
You can ask for the current. That's easy.
and what that percentage would be,
That won't tell you what this will bring in. It'll tell you what the current tax is.
but with, and then they also have, I don't know what your, but.
We do project.
You guys should have like a 5-year projection. And then same with all the other taxes, like the fuel tax, the diesel tax, I think you.
We can do that. We can ask.
And then.
And one of them is sitting over there. Would you be prepared to tell us those numbers? Which one?
Yeah.
Sales tax.
The sales tax income.
Yeah, I mean, we get it all the time. I just don't remember it off the top of my head. I mean, I know that the localities can provide it.
Yeah. So it's the retail tax and the gas tax. How much comes in?
Thing. Like, I don't know how much, I don't remember, but I know that they give it to us all the time.
I think for
Yeah.
So you're talking about the retail tax and the gas and diesel tax?
Yeah.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, really. I mean, the transient occupancy, you're not gonna get enough, so that's.
These are small amounts anyway.
And I would be careful, because that's one of the taxes that localities can change to get local revenue, to offset for revenue, so,
These are small, especially this one. It doesn't really help us.
yeah.
I mean, this is still
Yeah.
based on per capita throughout.
And Lori has. a
So
question.
I do have the,
Colin, what were you saying?
All these projections were based on kind of per capita within the Commonwealth average across to our jurisdiction.
We already know we're not average, so
Yeah.
that causes me concern that those numbers were, that I thought you had done more digging at the locality level.
So Mary Washington ran those numbers, not FAMPO staff. We took,
Did they look at our budget?
what did we do?
Like, how did they?
We put in these percentages here
Right,
It doesn't-
yeah.
and reran the numbers. But
Sure.
the template is Mary Washington's template. So we did not invent the template.
Have to figure out where do they get their numbers and what do they use? Okay, Lori and then Tom.
okay, so I mean, I have the gas tax stuff here.
Yes.
Which shows that Spotsylvania is, the highest contributor in our region. Not, Prince William, of course,
Because your
is higher
gas
than
is so
that.
cheap.
But, so there would need to be some consideration of that.
Send us whatever it is that.
Yes, I sure can. Just as an overview here, because again, we discussed this at our board. So I just want to be clear on what we're saying. We're not against this type of thing. However, I do want to point out, we are in the middle of an election year here, and things could change dramatically depending on how our board shift. And I've got 2 seats up that are open. The other 2 are, I would say, pretty safe or whatever, but things could shift. And I feel, and I know I'm not gonna, get a warm and fuzzy from you all on this. I feel like this is, I know you want to move it forward, but I feel like it's premature in order to do that. I really do. I think that there needs to be more discussion on this. I think there needs to be a consideration of what each locality brings to the table as far as that gas tax goes and everything else. I cannot, and I'll speak only for myself, get behind a retail tax rate increase. I don't even want to think about doing the transient occupancy tax we raised last year, or this year. I mean, we don't want to do that again. So, this, however you slice it, it's a tax increase on our citizens. And I'm not, I don't feel good about that at all. And especially right now, when we're in the situation we are, that we have so many needs. Schools are another one for us. I think it's for everybody, really. But I just feel that this is premature. And my board, the majority of my board feels the same way on this. So just wanted to express that.
Okay, I'll go to Tom and then to Jason.
And I know I'm a newbie, so I don't expect the answer now. But I'm always looking at how it's going to happen. So at some point, my mind goes to the timeline because FAMPO meets again November 20th. And correct me if I'm wrong, Meg, but I believe the legislature, they submit their bills in December. So if we're trying to impact this upcoming session, there's a very small window, and if this has to go to all the various localities to sign on. I mean, I understand and I applaud the idea of trying to get ahead of this train that may well come out of the legislature. But that's where my mind goes, is the logistics of how this gets from where we are tonight to where we have to be so that once something's submitted, we all understand.
So the answer to that question about timing, the new folks get elected on the 7th of November. In December, they submit legislation
Until the second week of January.
and January, right? So that's the window. Our concern is Chip, was it 3 that you told me this morning have said publicly that they are in favor of something like this?
Who said it?
No, I don't think we must start naming names in a FAMPO.
That's not helpful.
It would be nice
No,
to
it
know
would be
who said
nice
it.
to know because
We'll
we
tell
can
you
help
privately.
educate them. And what I was thinking is, so our board does the delegation dinner. We're doing it November 30th, I think, this year. We can put this as part of that but it almost might be better we can brief them on it and then invite them to the December FAMPO meeting and have them sitting in here looking at this stuff, because it's always really good to see a bill and say, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. But then when you start looking at the numbers and you start looking at what you're gonna have to do,
FAMPO meeting.
we don't have, well, maybe we should,
January.
but then it's too late.
And they'll be done, Rich.
Maybe we could have a special meeting in December.
Maybe we need to have a special delegation meeting on the RTA specifically, where we sit down and we show them these slides and we go through with the localities what we're okay with and what we're not, and work it out with them.
That would
We understand I know.
mindset of the timeline of getting to somewhere.
So the FAMPO November meeting is on the 20th,
Yes.
which is after the election.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll know on the 8th or something who the electeds are.
So who were the three that are pushing?
We'll tell you afterwards. I'm not going to name names here, but I'm telling you.
I know it's
said it
Pike.
publicly, right? So that means drafting. They're thinking.
That's right.
And this conversation tonight, if they're not watching online, they'll find out what we have to say. So I think what we're doing is the right thing. I'm not saying we should rush, but I'm saying that we're doing the right thing by not sitting with our hands folded and waiting for them to do it to us. We're saying, no, we want to be part of this conversation and we want to make these points that you all are making, right? And I think we should carry on and we should meet again as we do in November and try to answer some of these additional questions, right? Find out what the implications are in our region. You may take this and say, we're only going to put 2 of those taxes and we're going to put them forward at a reduced rate, right? There are all sorts of ways you can deal with that, but that is something that nobody's asking anybody to vote on tonight.
Okay, let's go over to Jason.
All right, thank you. And that's a lot of my point, is that we're not voting on it. The decision's not ours to make. That's the problem. Like, you're not going to get that final say. Your board will not get the final say. It's going to happen to us. And I think because it's going to happen to us, we can't just sit here and say no, no, no. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck with something that we know we're not going to like. And that's the problem, is it's not a choice on our end. And,
Well,
so hang on one second. Let me go to Bob and then I'll come back to Laura.
Just giving you dates so you guys can put it in the minutes and then you can reference them later. Key dates for the 2024 session, pre-filing begins Monday, November 20th.
Oh, look at
The
that.
very night that this body next meets is the opening of the pre-filing date. And then pre-filing ends 10 a.m. Wednesday, January 10th.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, Lori, and then.
so while I appreciate what you're saying, and I don't believe that my board is under any illusions that have any more power than the legislature has. We know that.
Okay.
However, when it's impacting our constituents, we have a right and an obligation to tell the legislature that this is what we're doing. This is what you're doing to us. Because at the end of the day, when those people see that their taxes are going up, they're not going to look to the state. They're going to look to us and say, what did you do with that gas tax? What did you do with the retail tax? What did you do with the transient occupancy tax? And I'm getting tired, and I'm sure you guys are too, of things being done to us on that level. And it happens all the time. And where it rolls down to is right there at the local level. And because people don't realize what's happening, we're the ones to blame. So I want to be transparent about this, and I want to tell my constituents, this is a bill that's going forward. So if you have a problem with the fact that you might get additional tax rate or gas tax or transient occupancy, you better contact your legislator.
Oh, 100%.
So that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to sit here and feel victim to somebody else's decisions. And that's where my board is coming from.
Oh, and I completely agree with that. I think all I want to do is just make sure that we, that we do have something in place.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
I gotcha.
All right, thank you, colleagues.
Well,
We have
I think
Jeff
Jacob
Black,
was trying to say something.
Jacob Lane
Oh, okay.
will be after Jeff Black. Thank you. And then also we have Kathy Binder online from King George.
Great.
She would like to weigh in.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff?
How close was this to passing last time?
One vote, Senator Stewart, I had to call him in the middle of committee. And he voted no to.
And do we, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Was it most, I mean, just out of curiosity, was it mostly Democrats that voted for this and Republicans were against it? Or
It was
pretty much?
It was proposed by Democrats, but the Republicans they thought that the localities were for it, and it kind of happened really quickly. And I think a lot of us were having a hard time just with timing, getting letters. I think we got a letter off from our board against it, but I don't think Spotsy was able to, and I don't think Frederick. I think you guys were favorable of it, if I remember. But so it was very split. And then we found out that one of the Stafford board members was working with McPike to try to say that Stafford was favorable of it without us knowing it.
You know how it worked last time?
I don't remember, but also we have to remember, we have a lot of new General
And-
Assembly people coming in this year.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
They
so
don't know the impacts.
they really don't know. They're gonna maybe go with their caucus or with somebody they know in the General Assembly.
Yeah. I think it's
Let
what,
me get to Jacob Lane and then see if Kathy Binder has any. Jacob?
Yes, ma'am, Chairwoman. Thank you all. Hey, Ian, can we go back to slide 7? So and also, Crystal, just waking up from my nap, I still want to,
I'm just kidding.
to say the sentiments of Lori. I mean, all of our localities last year, Stafford raised their taxes, Spotsy raised our taxes, and Fredericksburg raised our taxes, and Fredericksburg did. And we also raised our transient tax as well. So this is just going to be another tax increase on what all of the localities did last year. But Ian, on your question right there, it says one tax, not 3. So as an agricultural producer in the western part of Spotsylvania County, we have, of course, all the family has gasoline vehicles. We have on-road and off-road diesel vehicles. Do the agricultural producers get to pick which one we want to pay if this RTA is approved, or is it actually 3 different taxes?
So to answer the question, the tax is on the fuel. So if you use fuel A, then you pay tax A. If you use fuel B, you pay tax A. But on that same vehicle, you don't pay tax A and B. You only pay the one of the fuel that your vehicle uses.
So
If you have all 3 of those,
As a farm person, you may be.
as an agricultural producer that has the wife drives a Ford Explorer and I drive a diesel truck, but then we also have grain trucks that are VDOT approved for on-road diesel, and we have grain trucks and tractors that are off-road diesel. How are these taxes going to affect our agricultural producers in the rural areas?
So the same way that your current gas tax affects them.
So it's not
just more.
So it is 3 taxes. It's not just one tax.
All the tax goes up, Jacob.
But it's not the same. It's not all 3 taxes on one vehicle.
Well,
Right.
I understand that. Ian, I don't put diesel in my gasoline vehicle. I understand that, Ian. So I just wanted to make it clear that it is 3 separate taxes that are going up, not just one, basically.
That would make
In
money.
your case, that would be an accurate statement.
Thank you. All
Okay.
right, slide 8, if we could, Ian, please. So,
Sure.
so this is basically what we're asking. So we already have the VRE tax in our locality. So as proposed, we're looking at a 2 cent increase on, I would guess, our gasoline tax or our fuel tax.
Yes.
Okay. Can we go to slide? Can we go to slide?
The reason we picked the 2 cents is because when we took off from what Richmond is taxing now, we removed the amount of VRE tax. What's left is like 2 cents or 2.1 cents that we can still tax without exceeding what they've got in Richmond. We want to be below what they've got in Richmond so that we're not paying more than them here. We're paying a little bit less. And so the safest number is 2. If you go above 2, it becomes questionable as to whether, because it fluctuates. The trouble, as I said, with this BRE tax is it's a percentage, it's not an exact amount. So as the taxes, as the fuel costs go up and down, so the cents will go up and down based on the percent. So we have, unlike the VRE tax, we just say keep it to 2 cents, in which case it's much safer and you're unlikely to exceed what's happening next door in Richmond. You
Okay.
can stay below that.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you, Ian. Could we go to slide 10 real quick, Ian? And so to kind of do, to echo what Crystal and some of the other board members are saying, it would be very easy to contact our localities and see how these taxes or these increases are going to affect us and what the projections are. For instance, we just went up in transient and Spotsy. We also just went up in meals tax, and then I believe we just went up 4 cents, I believe, on our real estate. So I believe all the localities are raising taxes because we need more for our local funds. It's going to be a hard sell to my constituents. I can't ask them to give more when the state had $500 billion in surplus. Our localities are gaining each year on tax revenue, and then we're just going to come after my constituents for more tax revenue. But what I know your purpose is for local matches. So when you get us the figures together, could you let us know what each locality has been putting towards from their local fund towards local match on transportation projects by chance?
Well,
So if Spotsy had, if Spotsy, just for instance, over the past 3 years, X locality used X amount of dollars from their local fund for state matches. Because, I mean, in all reality, this just seems like another tax for a locality to raise local match money. I think you've even mentioned that this is a way for a locality to raise local match money. Well, if a locality hasn't been responsible in putting money toward, and don't get me wrong, I wish the state would take on maintaining and upgrading their state maintained roads, but they keep asking for the localities to ask, for more and more of local matches or more and more local money. And it just seems like if one locality is putting forth the effort to take money out of their local fund to put towards that, and another locality is not, this seems like a win for them and not for the locality that is actually doing that.
So Jacob, go ahead, Jeff.
Can I respond to that? I got a little problem with what you said with the localities not being responsible. I brought this up earlier in the meeting, and I'm from Caroline.
Yep.
And is the fact that when we have an opportunity cost, when we have a very limited budget, we're not Spotsylvania, okay? We're not Stafford. And when we have pipes underground that are, falling apart, and we have to spend $20 million on fixing pipes from current subdivisions or putting money towards roads, we don't have a choice. Okay, we really don't. And so to say that it's irresponsible, it's like we have a certain budget we need to work in. And so that's why I brought up this whole thing with rural localities. Rural localities don't have a lot of money for local match. We simply don't. Now, if some of these data centers get approved and so forth, yeah, then we might. But right now, it is very hard for rural localities to come up with that local match. So to say that we're irresponsible is not really accurate.
Yeah, sure. And I didn't mean it in any manner of disrespect or anything like that. The Livingston district of Spotsylvania is the most rural district of Spotsylvania. We get the least amount of money in transportation funds, even though we are the largest district in the county. And that's just a frustrating thing of me that the state asks for all these local match. And we've got to take care of our schools. We've got to take care of our FREM. We've got to take care of our sheriff's department. And we've got to take care of utilities within the county. And then the state continuously asks us to give more money for local matches when we need to do projects to state maintained roads. So Jeff, I meant no disrespect or anything like that when I used the word irresponsible, and I take that back. Let the record show. I apologize, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you,
But
gentlemen.
that's my,
Okay,
could I, get-
Catherine?
Ian, could I get that question answered? Could I get that report? And Caroline is different than Spotsy, Stafford, and Fredericksburg, and as King George, we're all different. But could I get that of what localities are putting towards VDOT or smart scale projects that are from the locality? What is the local match been, say, over the past 3 years?
So for smart scale projects, we can pull from our smart scale submissions.
That's
Oh, sorry.
gonna ask.
Marcy Parker from VDOT is here and she wants to talk to the.
You can pull that information like for the last 3 years or 5 years or whatever by locality.
Okay, so Jacob, we can get that information. All right, thank you, Susan.
Great, thank you.
Also, when it comes to all the taxes, Ian, you should be able to email the county administrators and Tim Baruti from the city, and all of our CFOs can give you all the information that you need, okay? Don't piecemeal everything. Lori, he can get that. Kathy, are you online and do you have any questions, or is there anything you would like to say?
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so I'm coming in on my phone, so I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. I echo a lot of sentiments. King George has 3 seats that could turn, so the whole election makeup and decision making can change on November 7th. But I will tell you from hearing the scuttlebutt around on social media and at our forums, King George is not excited about taxes, especially for many different reasons. So that would be a really hard sell in King George to tell the constituents, we're going to raise your taxes, and we don't see our data sending money for 4 years. So, you know, we are like Caroline, we don't have a lot of money to throw around to spend. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so I would just like to say, there's not a locality in here that has any money, extra money to spend. We're all in the same boat. We're all on the same page. You know, Stafford, we increased taxes 9 cents last year. I mean, we had no choice. So, you know, I've been on and off FAMPO over the years, and I will tell you, I was adamantly against this tax probably 6 years ago when I had an opportunity to weigh in. But I'm at the point, based on where I live, going back to what Jacob said, each of us has a different lens, and it's based on what district we represent and where you're located in the region and how you're impacted by the local traffic. I said to my husband when we ran out to run an errand Sunday afternoon at 3:30, I said, oh, it's so nice. We don't have the Northern Neck traffic and beach traffic coming on Butler Road on a Sunday evening, because we do all summer, okay? And so we all have a different lens. And the reason, even though I don't want this additional tax, when you talk to people in the region, for me, from my perspective, the number one thing they're frustrated with is transportation, and they can't get around the region. And so this RTA, in my mind, we're going to be doing regional projects that in essence will help our entire region. Yes, will the Caroline project down there in Ladysmith help Stafford County or my district when that is built? Probably not. It may if there's a massive, you know, accident on the interstate or something. But we have to look at this, in my mind, globally as leaders sitting around this table. I don't think there's anybody here that wants an additional tax. This is about solving our transportation problems on a more regional basis so we can get a more bang for our buck, in my opinion. So, and I do agree, it's going to happen to us. And so it would really behoove us to write our own legislation and put something forward.
Just a question.
Uh-huh.
If a locality chooses not to participate with this, they can choose to opt out, correct?
So
I'm just asking, because I'm gonna go back to my board. Jake and I are, got a board meeting next week, and I'm gonna report on what happened tonight, so I just need to know.
So FAMPO is not going to make this decision, and nor is GWRC, right? We are trying to use this to come up with something we can live with so that we can lobby the people who are going to make this. So I guess you could say that only 4 out of 5 jurisdictions want it. And we use that as the basis to, and I use the word lobby advisedly, we're not lobbyists, right? I don't mean it in the technical sense. I mean, argue for or encourage or some other word. I don't mean I'm a lobbyist or you're a lobbyist. We're not lobbyists. I mean, encourage the right outcome is what I mean by the word lobby. So if 4 out of 5 of our jurisdictions want it and 1 doesn't, I guess that's what we have to say to the people that get to make this decision. The thing is, the reason why I'm so adamant that we consider this, not make a decision, but consider this, is because I think that other people are considering it for us, and they've not spoken to us once, not once. Chip and I drove down to Richmond to meet with a certain politician who had proposed the last round of this legislation. But it was our initiative. We got in the car, we asked for an appointment, we went down there. What I'm trying to help you all do is to have this discussion before anything happens, to think about it, to change the proposals to something you might be able to live with, and we can then use that to discuss with these ladies and gentlemen in the Senate and the House to try and get us a better deal. But if one of the 5 localities says we can't, then that's what we say to them, right? What they decide to vote on in the House, I can't control. Your chairperson can't control, but we could certainly work hard to influence them. And I think that's why, even if we end up not doing this, this conversation is super important to have, so that when these people start doing things, we know what to say. Last time I didn't know what to say. I was calling saying, please stop, please come talk to us. People were calling to try and stop it because we felt totally excluded from the process. So this process that we are doing at FAMPO is to get ourselves back in the conversation and at least put a proposal to these people before they vote on something. So if you come back, we're not voting on anything now.
I know.
If you come back and say, we don't want to be part of this, I'm happy to work with the chairperson and the GWRC executive director to convey that information. You might find that you can take this and reduce it, right? Much smaller numbers or something, much less impact. Whatever you guys feel is the right thing to do, I believe the chairperson acts on your behalf. So whatever you tell us is what you want, we'll try and get that for you. It's up to you guys to influence each other as to what, the region needs.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Lori, but I want to ask everybody, can we do kind of a straw poll after Lori speaks about these different taxes up here, to maybe do a little bit of process of elimination so people have more information to take back to their respective boards or city councils?
So
And maybe you can change the number. So if
Correct.
That's what the straw poll is about the number.
Right. Well, not necessarily about the number, but about the category.
Oh, okay.
Because we all increased, I think, transient occupancy tax
Yes.
last year. So, I mean, let's just throw out kind of what we don't want.
right. And, and I appreciate all of this. And I don't want to be seen as, the person that's the no person here, or that Spotsy's the no people. It's very concerning to me that we have legislators that take it upon themselves to make decisions for a locality without even consulting us. McPike, after I heard about this last year, I called him, I emailed, I got 0. No consideration for anything. That is extremely inappropriate in my mind. So whoever these 3 people are, we need their names, which I know you don't want to do it publicly, but they need to understand that what they do there impacts us. And we have to carry the water for them on this stuff. And I'm getting sick of it, but I will get off my high horse on that one.
Okay.
But,
that's what we told them last year. We agree with you.
right. And again, now, so now we want to sort of take the bull by the horns, and we want to make up something ourselves, when last year, maybe we should have just said, don't do this, period, end of story. Now we're allowing ourselves to be in this position, and I get it, you know, because somebody decided to do that last year. That doesn't, the slate's clean, and who knows, after November 7th, this may be a moot point. You know, we don't know. That's my.
When all the senators and delegates in my mind are looking at all of our glut on the interstate, and if there are other regional projects that they feel will help our region, like NVTC does in Richmond and Hampton Roads, I think that's why they're pressing on us so hard. And, you know, they're trying to, quote, get a little feather in their cap.
Right.
Oh, I helped the, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, it's not
all right. So is there anybody that is interested in the TOT? Okay. Anybody interested?
Well, hold on.
Okay.
No, I think that I think all of these are still, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, worth just taking a look at. And the reason I'm saying this is this 1%, or, you know, take any of these up here. We have to think about the likelihood that that will impact a decision not to spend money in our localities. Are we saying that we feel that this increase will actually change someone's mind and lower the amount of revenue that we receive? I mean, because that's what we're talking about with taxes. And when we're looking at it from a revenue standpoint, does it impact? And if you say it does, and then let's have that discussion.
I think we don't have enough information because we don't have the total taxes. I think we should wait to do
Yes,
a whole
I think so
until the
too.
next meeting.
Yeah.
Because we might see that it changes like Stafford's retail sales to 7% and be like, whoa, no, that's off the table for us. And it changed all of our minds. So I think we need to look at what those.
Plus, you want a board discussion. I mean, one supervisor. I mean, granted, you know, you want to put from everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just curious for everybody sitting around the table and those that are online.
Yeah.
Bob.
One thing that I would just consider is, again, having been through actually passing $1 billion sales tax, what you want is you want that blend of whether it's motor fuels because it's utilization, the occupancy tax are for non-residents.
Right.
So part of that balance is, for example, if you're looking at retail tax, what percentage of, do you have data that says what percentage is from out of the region? For example, ours is Richland County, South Carolina, which is the University of South Carolina as well as the state government. So the taxes that were being generated, yes, were no question local, but it also was pilfered from Lexington County and other counties because it was that revenue stream. So as you're looking at this, one of the things I just encourage you as boards is, where would these likely come from? Would they come from your residents or outside? And just use that as part of your weight distribution.
And so maybe we don't even need to do a straw poll. We wait till
I
we
just
get
said.
additional.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So let's get more information.
Right.
Okay, anybody have any more questions for Ian?
Just remember those 2,500 homes that are being built outside of your region. How do we get a little bit back from them? That's my question.
That's a project over the next
Is it a
15, 20 years.
That's not the only one. They've got, Potsy's got 20,000.
I remember that.
Yes.
And Skull.
I bet he was real happy.
Okay, Chairperson, can we close this up?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
do that.
The other document is just a draft bill that reflects this. You don't need to do anything with it.
Okay.
So,
What about the vision statement?
yes, so this one I think is very quick.
Yeah.
It's a one pager. So we've been talking about this Vision 2075 for a whole year, and it's time to make some decisions. So I've made this as innocuous as possible, and the TAC supported this 100%. It's just the first few concepts. The vision statement is a written declaration clarifying your group's meaning and purpose for stakeholders. Describes the desired long-term results. For example, an early Microsoft vision statement was a computer on every desk and in every home. So what is ours? What are we trying to achieve? Vision of FAMPO is to move people and goods efficiently, create local jobs, and strengthen our communities by pursuing efficient mobility, increased accessibility, improved safety, economic vitality, and a resilient region.
Maybe that first and doesn't need to be there?
That first and is not okay. Because the TAC added an item, that's why we've got improve quality of life and to promote regional cooperation and collaboration. There's nothing in there that should give you heartburn, I don't think. Scroll up. Then we've just broken them down into actual goals. An accessible and connected community, efficient mobility, safe travel, economic growth, and a resilient and sustainable region. Scroll up. And an improved quality of life. I was almost going to say, can I get an amen? But can you approve this?
Meeting adjourned now.
Can you approve this? You can see this is all blank. So before we add anything here, we'll bring it back to you again. But can you approve the structure? Yes? All those?
Okay, that's good.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. The TAC approved it. You all in favor of it? That one's done. Next. We missed something. haven't we?
We missed
Your administrative report.
Okay, you've got the presentation. Just pull it up quick. I'll do this very quickly. We try to answer this question for you. Where do the big trucks come from that hit our region in the afternoon and clog up our roads? Where do they originate? So we did the best we can. We used the tool that VDOT allows us to use at their cost, which is street light. However, it has limitations. We don't have a national license for street light. We have a Virginia license, and you'll see in a moment why that's important. Connor and I worked on this. So heavy duty trucks, their origins, where do they come from? So first we looked at Route 3 heading east towards the I-95. Where do those trucks come from? Right? In the afternoon, because they get on the I-95. Some from Stanton, you can see out here. And then there's obviously some local ones that come from Central Park and Spotsylvania Town Center. The next slide will tell you the exact locations. So these are Spotsylvania Town Center, Culpeper, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg.
No, that's before 407 is Spotsy.
That first one is Spotsy.
Yeah, that's.
Huh?
Post office.
Locust, Rowan, Orange County, Gordonsville, Rapidan, etc. You can see
Y'all owe Stafford some money.
it's mostly Virginia trucks that are coming down Route 3, as us foreigners say. Okay, next one. 17, a little bit different, right? Here's 17. Front Royal, Winchester, Hagerstown, etc. Need to explain the hash. If there's a hash, it means there's a truck stop there, and this is where the VDOT license limits us. We can't start any trips outside of Virginia and find out where those trucks come from originally. We only know from the truck stop to Virginia because our license is limited to Virginia. So they may be coming from even further afield if you see the origin is the hash. It means that there's a truck stop there. It comes from even further away. Okay? So that's the limit of this. If there's no hash, that's exactly where it comes from. If there's a hash, that's just where the truck stop is. It might come from further. But you can see what's clogging up 17 in big trucks. You can see here where they come from. They're coming from further away. Next slide.
Wait, what are the light hashes?
This still has a truck stop, but.
They went to a truck stop. We don't know.
Oh,
Right.
okay, gotcha.
So yeah, you can see still again, some in Virginia, right? Front
Wait,
Royal,
is it-
Winchester, Warrenton, Clearport, etc.
Wait, is that 406 or 046?
046.
No, that was
Oh,
that a
yeah,
typo.
no.
Because post office name says Fredericksburg.
I think that's a typo.
I think that's a automated type of office.
All right, Stafford owes us money back.
Yeah,
Other ones were way.
look at this.
False.
70% comes from places in Virginia. But look where the next biggest chunk comes from.
Oh, the hay coming to feed Jacob's
Big
horses.
trucks on 17 that are coming from Pennsylvania.
That Breezewood truck stop. That
Yeah,
you know
Yeah.
about that thing
Yeah.
is huge.
yeah.
Maryland and West Virginia trucks are clogging up 17, making that congestion that you're worried about worse. And we don't have a single way of getting them to pay for the upgrade we need on 17. That's where they're coming from.
Soul Road.
Big picture.
Road, yeah.
Here's the big picture.
Tax
We went
highway.
for the I-95. Where are the I-95 trucks heading south in the afternoon that clog up the I-95? Where do they come from? Well, New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia.
Bringing all those
Lots-
ballots south.
Lots come from the topmost corner of Maryland, all the way up the I-81 corridor, Baltimore.
Baltimore's the one that has the highest volume, but that does not include a truck stop or a major flight. Right.
So a ton of the big trucks on the I-95 here in our region come from Baltimore. Next slide.
Just a truck depot there, just hanging.
Woodbridge is the worst offending place. The biggest number of trucks in the afternoon that are big trucks come from Woodbridge. Then Laurel, Maryland. You can see that at top corner of Maryland.
Yeah.
Baltimore, New Jersey, Maryland, and unfortunately, as I said to you, where that crosshatch
Right there, that's
comes from
Swedesboro.
even further away.
Yeah, if you've driven through Swedesboro in New Jersey, it's nothing but warehouse, 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 warehouse.
Oh,
And some of those come from New York and further north because there's a truck stop where we see beyond the truck stop. So yeah, 43% comes from Maryland. Only 19% of those trucks actually come from Virginia. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, etc. goes up to.
I mean, really, those percentages, it just means really it's 19% Virginia, 81% non-Virginia, because like you said, they could be coming from other states. We don't
The
know.
point is, these are our Virginia trucks. Those are trucks from
Yeah.
the rest of the country that are clogging up the I-95 in the afternoon southbound. When everyone in DC and North Virginia gets in their car and gets on I-95, they're competing with these trucks from all over the place.
That's why we need to tax them, the diesel.
You can just start pulling them over.
That's why we're showing you these slides to show you that these are further afield people. They cause congestion here and they come from this southbound. This is southbound in the afternoon.
Okay.
Because we don't worry so much about northbound in the afternoon. So we focused on southbound in the afternoon. Next slide. Couple of quick dates you need to remember. We had the SS4A first stakeholder meeting this morning. Made a start on the research, and we've asked each jurisdiction to confirm that the corridors that our consultant has identified are the worst corridors that we need to deal with safety needs. The CMAC and STGB call for projects closes on the 20th of November. So that's 6 million that we've got to allocate, which will build you one piece of sidewalk. But anyway, you can get your project applications in, and people get really worked up about that 6 million. And I'm like, you can build one piece of sidewalk. Why? Smart scale round 6. We've been told by our lovely friends in VDOT over there that by the 1st of December, at least we must have our project ideas in the system, right? Which means you all have to pick the winners and losers in your jurisdictions. Also submit to FAMPO because we need to have regional projects. And remember, we've been told we have to pick bigger regional projects this year. We can't put your local traffic light intersection upgrade into the smart scale process for FAMPO or GWRC. Have to pick bigger ones because otherwise they're going to score badly. Virginia Transportation Conference is this week in Crystal City, starting on Wednesday. I'll be going. Some of you I know are going. And then the TAP applications awards are already in. And we expect to hear which ones are going to be funded from February to April next year. We don't have an exact date. It depends on their own internal procedures. Just want to remind you of these dates. Each one of them is about a project or a funding or a something that you need to know about. Your staff at the TAC already know this. Just letting you know so you know what's going on. I'm done.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay, correspondence?
Just, I think, 2 items. The one you know about,
Al?
Oh my God.
gave you further enlightenment, so you all know that already. And then just this particular thing, electrification projects. There's a project going on in our region that the FRA is involved in just supporting. We just thought we'd alert you to the fact that people are starting to do charging stations and the likes in our region. There's a particular example of one that's happening right now.
Okay, Ian, are there any other staff and agency reports?
Coley has just one to tell you about.
Okay, Collie?
And that is this. You talk to it.
Yes, so I have copied you all on the vacancies in our Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee, CTAC. And here's the current members in each jurisdiction, as well as our at-large members and their attendance. We have 6 out of 7 seats in Stafford County, but 2 of those people don't attend currently.
Can you tell
So
us who doesn't attend?
Yeah, if you could let us know.
I'll tell you privately.
Yeah, that's
Right.
in the city of Fredericksburg, you have 4 out of 7, with a couple of those people not attending.
3 normally attend.
3 normally attend, and 1 does not. Spotsylvania County, 2 out of 7.
And you stole our Morgan Birch from
No,
staff. He moved.
5 and Spotsy, please, if you could help us.
Okay.
It's a lot of vacancies.
And then King George County is completely vacant, and Caroline County, none of these people are attending either. So, and then all of our at-large attendees regularly attend.
So please help us fill the vacancies so that we can make sure we have a quorum in every meeting. Pretty please. Thank you. That's it.
All right, any board member comments? Anybody have anything else? Marcy?
No, ma'am.
Bob? Okay, next policy committee meeting is November 20th at 6 PM. Go talk to your boards and your cities about RTAs. Everybody have a good night. Goodbye.
Thank you.